Welcome back, Rankers. Hope you've got a good week. Hope you liked last week's show. Got abreast of search. Had a lot of comments on the show. Thank you very much for that. I want to talk to you this week about a couple of things about Google's new Chief Technology Officer and what he's saying about how to get ranked in Google. And I want to start off, though, with this guy, friend of the show and mate of mine, David Scott, whose site one of his sites we've recently rebuilt, and he maintained his rankings. One of the things that always happens, or that we always get asked about, and I had a meeting this week where someone said, we've got a new site back in May, and our rankings are kaput, they're gone. And why did that happen? Well, it's because the web developer didn't 301 all the new or the old URLs to the new equivalent URLs. That is so important. So if you are thinking about getting a website redesign, make sure you 301 your old URLs. Because think of it this way. Google's crawled all your URLs. Let's just say you have 50 pages. It knows where those are. You switch to a different content management system, and all of a sudden all those URLs are changed. They're no longer the same. So all of a sudden, everything that Google knows about your site is broken, is busted, and Google does not want to send its users there. Google wants its users to have a good experience, which I'll examine a little bit when we look at Google's new Chief Technology Officer. But one of the things that we did for David Scott recently was build a mobile version of his site. Now, we did it in responsive design. Now, that means that rather than a whole separate site and a whole separate database and a whole separate content management system, it's one site, and then the website basically detects how you are accessing his site. And if you are accessing it on a mobile device, you'll get a site that looks great for that. And if you're obviously accessing it from the desktop, you'll get a different version of the site. The reason that's important is that about a year ago, Google changed their tune when it came to having, say, m.david-scott versus David Scott at responsive design. They used to say, oh, you should have a separate site, you should have it at m. Then they changed that. Because what would happen is that you would go to, say, davidmemonscott.com, and the server would detect that you're on a mobile device, and it would redirect you to m.davidmemonscott. That was the old way of doing things, which Google recommended. Then they realized, well, actually, that's sort of cloaking. That's giving the user one experience and the bot a different experience. So anyway, now, best practice for Google is responsive design. Make sure you do it. And when you change from one old site to a new site, it should be transparent for your rankings. If anything, your rankings should get better. If they're not, then give us a call. I want to talk to you about this article in Smart Company today. Google's new technology officer has been saying that the 10 ways to make your business Google friendly. Tips from Google Chief Technology Officer. Now, look, great story. And in essence, I agree with what most of he is saying, but quite a lot of it, I'm sorry, it's not true. I was going to say something else. So, what is he saying? Well, the top 10 things is, number one, create popular content. Well, we always say that. Create good content, create stuff that people want to share and all the rest of it. And he says here, the way you get ranked more highly is to have a genuine interest in other people. Bollocks. You can have all the interest in other people you like. You're not going to get ranked more highly. Google doesn't know that you have a genuine interest in people. If you are publishing and engaging with people, which is, I guess, what he means, sure, you're going to get a better chance of ranking. But what he's not saying in this story, if your site is full of errors, or if your site is full of duplicate content, or if you are constantly having 404s, or if 50% of your site has the same page title, guess what? You're not going to rank. You can have the most interesting people all you like, but if you have all those problems, you're not going to rank. And I'm annoyed that Google's Chief Technology Officer here isn't saying that. He's saying, don't bother so much about keywords. We can kind of get what you're on about just by the context, and we understand people searching now, semantic, way. Sorry, that is good advice, but what he is not telling you here now is make sure you have the site built in such a way that it's going to be a good experience for users. Because if you're in a competitive space, and we've shown it on this show before, if you're in a competitive space and you have a bunch of 404s, guess what? You're going to drop, and your competitors are going to go above you. Because if your competitors have a better performing site than you, and he's touched on this here with the need for speed, but if your competitors have a better performing site, they're going to rank higher than you, all other things being equal. The other thing he hasn't mentioned here is talked about, use localized clues, and that's really good. Well, what he doesn't understand is there's stuff in Google that you can be using, stuff like structured data. If you go to optimization in your Google Webmaster Tools, go to structured data. If you've got a lot of addresses and phone numbers and those sorts of things on your site because you've got multiple offices, make sure you go and set that up. There's a video there you can watch. He doesn't tell you to do that. But, Google doesn't always get it right, okay? In fact, quite often, they get it very, very wrong. And I'm not saying that Michael Jones is getting it wrong here, but if you have a look at this message that we got from Google the other day, and I won't show you who the client is, but, typical message, possible outages. But look at the date on the message, December 31, 1969. Now, I know man had landed on the moon by then because Mum told me about it. But I'm pretty sure the web wasn't around then, and I'm pretty sure Larry and Sergey would have lucky to have been born by then. So Google doesn't always get it right. A message from the past. Maybe those reports of the time traveler in those videos were true. So you've got to look at all those things and ask the questions from your own perspective. If this was my search engine, if I was building a search engine for people, would this be a good experience for them? Would this page ranking for a certain phrase make sense for them? And look, Google, you don't often hear them coming out and talking about things. Google's chief technology officer coming out and talking about stuff's great because they've been very insular and they've had it all their own way for a long time. But I tell you what, search is changing, and the things that we are focusing on here as to future-proof our business is that we're looking at what Facebook is doing with search. If Facebook gets search right, and I mean real search, it's going to be a big, big scare to Google, because what Google's doing is they're trying to get the search results to reflect what actual people are saying, what actual individuals are saying, with things like authorship and with things like reviews, like buying all the review sites that they've bought. They're trying to get it down to these are actual people's recommendations. Well, guess what? Facebook's got a bucket load of. And they don't care about your privacy. So they can just drill into that data. You might not see a recommendation from who that actual person was, but you might see how you are related or connected in the network to that particular person in Facebook search. And the other big area, of course, is mobile search. As we've spoken about before, mobile is a whole new channel now. And now we're seeing Siri being the big thing in search for iOS. Doesn't work for me. It still doesn't understand me, but Siri wouldn't be the first. But it gets its data from Yelp. Well, who in Australia uses Yelp? Seriously. If you use Yelp, I'd like to hear about it. Anyway, that's it for this week's show. And if you like the show, then please let us know. Oh, by the way, tonight, Wednesday, be at Shop Talk in Melbourne. And if you're at the Zendesk soiree tomorrow in Melbourne, hope to see you there. Hope to catch up. We'll bump iPhones or something. And we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Bye.